This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
Here we go, hour one. And greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. In here, the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. Yes, it's Super Bowl Sunday. It's on over there. We're on over here. Those of you that want real news, it's going to be important. It's going to be an important week. It's a great place to be to get that news and analysis because we begin the news cycle right here each Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We are the voice of the revolution, and we're streaming to you live from the Truth Frequency Radio Network on audio. This is where the Truth Freaks hang out, and we are not afraid to let our Truth Freak flag fly. And remember, subscribing here will treat, cure, and prevent the disease of ignorance. We're also streaming to you live on video on Foxhole, Twitch, Facebook, DLive, Twitter, YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, Rockfin, and any place else that wants to rebroadcast this program. So in short, we're coming to you every possible way that we can because we rely on you to help spread the truth. All right, let's get started. What? Bengals? I just think it's going to be the Bengals. I'm just a gut. I don't have any analysis. Bengals. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Don't worry about that. Also, I want to welcome everybody in our multifunctional chat room. We have, let's see, Mr. Choney's out there. Charlene Cole is out there. Eric Ellert is out there. A lot of people out watching the Super Bowl at the moment. I think the commercials. What do you think? I'm not, I haven't seen anything really. I fell asleep during the electric Chevy Silverado commercial. Oh, that was a big snooze. Ooh, $7 million for 30 seconds. I don't know if it was worth it, guys. Could have done something else, really. That was really not exciting. Not exciting. We're used to seeing tire smoking, sideways drifting pickup trucks in all of our ads. Right? Okay, let's get started. By the way, YouTube is with us tonight, and we have a lot of people listening on YouTube, but we'll try to behave ourselves, but, Google routinely violates our civil rights and suppresses our free speech, so we're probably not going to stay with YouTube very long tonight. We have a lot to go over, and a lot of these things they don't like. So we're going to go with these other free speech platforms, and we will probably be saying goodbye to YouTube very soon. By the way, about a half hour ago, I watched the Indians. Looks like they successfully launched their satellite. Last year's attempt splatted. But the sibling satellite looks like it took off okay. Wow, spectacular night shot. I mean, whoever had that shoulder cam out there really braved it. The thing looked like it exploded on the pad. It was so bright, but it ended up taking off. So I got to hand it to him. It's really good. Really, really good. All right. We got to talk a little bit about Durham, the Durham offensive. In January of 2020, yeah, this is just as the bioweapon was being announced that it had arrived at U.S. shores. It was the first week of January. I was speaking at a George Filer event in New Jersey. Yeah, it was cold. You bet it was. But one of the guys there who is a big fan and offered to take me on a tour of some of the historical sites, of which there are plenty. And one of the things I wanted to see was the Durham boats. So we go down to the Delaware. It's about, I don't know, 80 below zero. No, it wasn't like that, but it was cold. We're standing on the edge of the Delaware, and they have this warehouse where the Durham boats are in. And the museum is closed that day for tours, but for some reason, right there, the warehouse was open. And I got to take some pictures and stand next to the Durham boats, which were in racks inside this building. Yeah, they're rowboats, but they're big. They're meant for like taking coal across the river. They're probably 25 feet long, really something. And what they did is they would put planks of wood across there so the horses could stand in the boats and cannons and such, and they would float them across the river. And the river at that point is about 65 yards, 70 yards. A little swift, but at the time it was kind of frozen, chunky ice, and they made their way across. In the paintings, it looks like it's like half a mile across, but it's not. It's less than 100 yards for sure. Anyway, the interesting thing is we took the same route that Washington would take. No, we didn't get in the boat, but we went across the bridge, but up the same road that is in the same place on the same hill that Washington and his army went up. And the story goes that the Hessians were on the top of the high point there in the woods, and they were camped out, and it was like early in the morning, just like pre-dawn, 4:30, something like that in the morning, cold as snot. And they were not very well equipped, not a sound to be made anywhere. So as the story goes, 2 Hessian scouts were coming down the road at the time that Washington's army was walking up the road. And the road takes kind of a dogleg, left for about 100 yards and then right and back up the hill. And of course, the Hessians are cold too. Horses don't come with heaters, and you're on the morning patrol, nothing's going to happen. The point is, they made it halfway down the road, looked back up, noticed no one was really checking to make sure that they were going actually all the way down to the river. So they didn't go down to the river. They stopped about halfway, and they talked a little bit, and they waited a sufficient amount of time, and then they turned around and they walked back up to camp, with the horses. So Washington's army was not discovered. Had they been discovered, the Hessians would have just cut them to pieces right down there and would have had their back to the river. That would have been it for Washington's army. So as luck would have it, Washington's army was able to sneak up there, surprise the Hessians in their underwear, and they didn't fire a shot and captured them all. Another story, and we would all be speaking with English accent. There would be no such thing as the United States of America or a president, George Washington. Interesting story about the Durham boats. I just thought you'd find that interesting. So Special Counsel John Durham filed a motion 2 days ago on Friday in D.C., and the motion alleges that Hillary Clinton's political allies, these are people that actually worked for her, that spent her money, that were following her orders, the allies paid a contractor to spy on candidate and President Donald Trump. This is not good. This is not good. This is treason. spying on a sitting president is treason. Now, the motion was filed in the case of former Clinton campaign lawyer Michael Sussman. You remember Sussman, who was arrested? He was charged with lying to the FBI about whether he was working for the campaign when he told the FBI about a false link between Trump and Russia. and the indictment is what was so interesting, because it wasn't just like, Mr. Sussman, you're under arrest, anything you can say, blah, blah, blah. No. It was like a long indictment, and it had, person one and technical person two and tech giant one. We knew who these people were, even though the words weren't being used. And we also knew that what Durham was doing in those indictments is he was sort of mapping out his offensive. And as he was mapping out his offensive, of course, he was doing it for our benefit, so we wouldn't lose hope, maybe, so that maybe we would know justice is on the way. But I think he was also kind of watching to see, well, a couple things. One, he wanted to see if the rats would run. And in running, you kind of you're hasty. You leave things unlocked. You leave drawers open. You leave evidence behind. And that's one of the things that could have been thought about at the time. The other thing is that at that point, people get very individualistic, okay? Like, I haven't been with this team very long. I got plenty of life to live. I love my wife. My kids are in school. My boys, with football. I'm not going to jail for the rest of my life for the likes of Hillary Clinton. So I'm going to flip. I'm going to give them evidence in hopes that they give me a really light sentence or no sentence at all, or thank you very much. You're a great informant, person A, and off you go with a new identity. I'm thinking that's what Durham was thinking. He is an experienced prosecutor, and he knows that evil people are usually stupid, and stupid people are usually weak. And by weak, I mean they practice appeasement on a regular basis. Appeasement is basically feeding your friends to the alligator in hopes it will eat you last. That's what Durham's counting on. So, as you know, Sussman was a partner at Perkins Coie. Perkins Coie is the consigliere for the global syndicate in the United States. And when I use the term consigliere, I'm using a term that's normally used in mafia legal counsel. Two guys are really the most valuable in a mafia organization, in an organized crime organization. The bookkeeper, because he knows where all the money is, where it's all hidden, where it comes from, who owes what, and the consigliere, because he knows who's in jail, when they get out. He has all the judges and cops and detectives in his back pocket, and he's the guy that protects the Don, okay, and his interests. That's the consigliere. That's Perkins Coie. Anyway, they represent Democrats. They basically represent establishment party operatives, which hired a company called Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS is basically a propaganda factory. What they do is they make up crap and lies about political opponents, and then they leak them to the press or give them to the press, or leave them after one type of sex or another with the press and destroy their political opponents. That's what Fusion GPS does. And they're the ones that produced the fake Russian rag. They call it a dossier, which is a a French word for shit rag. That's what a dossier is. On then candidate Trump, and at the behest of the Clinton campaign, and paid for by the Clinton campaign, and the major talking points supplied by Hillary Clinton herself and the Democrat National Committee. The money has been traced. Yes, how you doing, Channel Changer? Good to see you out there in the chat room. Nice. Looking good. Bruce Myers, good. Yeah, Wires. Yeah, we are watching kind of the halftime thing, whatever that is. No. Okay. Durham's filings, they deal with a potential conflict of interest, which is the crack that's letting the light get in, okay? And it involves Sussman's legal representation from Latham and Watkins, which also represented others in the investigation whose interests may conflict with those of the defendant. In other words, he represented both sides of the argument. That's a conflict of interest, okay? I think you understand what that means, right? So basically, when you represent the guy that's trying to buy the land and you represent the guy that's selling the land, that's a conflict of interest. Anyway, these Techo Fog blog notes, which include Perkins Coie, former Perkins Coie lawyer Mark Elias, who's also named in the indictment, and who has resigned, by the way, a big salary job at Perkins Coie, and Hillary Clinton. I know it says the Hillary Clinton campaign, but there ain't no Hillary Clinton campaign. It's Hillary Clinton, okay? Everything is Hillary Clinton. It's all about her. She absorbed and consumed all the money that was raised, even on state levels. Yeah, it was called, Hillary for president, and that was it. Everybody else be damned. What counted was getting her in office. So they're also charged or exposed to very heavy criminal liability. We're not talking about just lying to the FBI. We're talking about treason here. We're talking about death penalty stuff, firing squad stuff. This is serious stuff. And the firm of Perkins Coie is also going to face a conflict of interest among the various defendants, and it's going to be a legal quagmire. But anyway, the filing reveals that Sussman was involved in an effort to mine data from a project that was actually run by DARPA. Now you're getting to see the picture, right? We're not just talking about a stinky, filthy, evil law firm. We're also talking about DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Yeah, they have tons of money, almost unlimited amounts of money, not just the money they get from you, the taxpayer, but money that they get from selling drugs and arms and blackmail and bribes and robbery of gold and cash from countries that they compromise. Yeah, that DARPA, the one that gives money to Hollywood, that gives money to the major television networks, that crafts propaganda to be dumped on the American public to force the public to separate. That DARPA. And they also had a university identified in previous reports as Georgia Tech. I've never been to Georgia Tech, but evidently they have quite the spy training organization there. And all of this was designed to do one thing and one thing only, and that was to spy on candidate and then President Trump at Trump Tower. So, and at his private residence and at the executive office of the presidency once Trump took office in the White House. Yeah, they actually spied on the White House itself. Now, foreign countries would like to do this, but our own intelligence operatives were doing it. And the goal, of course, was to dig up damaging information that could be used to build the Russia collusion narrative against Trump. And guess what they found? They found nothing. Zero, zip, nothing, not a syllable, not a comma, not a sentence, nothing. So anyway, he notes in the filing, and this is number 4, The indictment also alleges that beginning in approximately July of 2016, remember, we didn't even know who the candidate was until May 26th, 2016. May 26th, 2016. We're talking July 2016. Yeah, 2 months. 2 months. That's how long it took them to put this together. Anyway, Tech Executive 1. That's what's used in the indictment, actually. Tech Executive 1 had worked with the defendant, a U.S. investigative firm retained by Law Firm 1, which is Perkins Coie, on behalf of the Clinton campaign, which is named in the indictment, numerous cyber researchers, hackers, and employees at multiple internet companies, Facebook, Twitter, to assemble the purported data and white papers. In connection with these efforts, Tech Executive 1, who I'm going to name in just a minute, and this has to do with Friday's motion that was filed, exploited his access to non-public and or proprietary internet data. There's data you can access, right, through browsers or your search bar if you're lucky, right? But non-public data. This is data in the DNS, okay, in the digital name server. You can put it in. You can notice what your ISP is, with your laptop or your computer. Every chip has an ISP that can be traced right to you, to your address, to where you're sitting, unless you have a VPN that can block your location. But still, non-public data, right? You don't mess with the timestamps. They know when you signed on. They know when you accessed a website. They know how long you were there. They know what pages you looked at. And they know when you left. That's all non-public data. That is recorded on a very high level. Okay? Well, Mr. Tech Executive 1 had access to that data. He had access to data you don't get to see. Very important point here. He exploited this. Tech Executive 1 also enlisted the assistance of researchers. Not just any old researchers, not like, really good internet surfers or really good, people that know how to, follow a thread or go to the 100th page of a Google search. No. These researchers were at a U.S.-based university who were receiving and analyzing large amounts of internet data in connection with a pending federal government cybersecurity research contract. And this Tech Executive 1 was actually assigned these researchers to mine internet data to establish an inference and a narrative tying Trump to Russia. But there was no tie of Trump to Russia. It didn't exist. So what to do? In doing so, Tech Executive 1 indicated that he was seeking to please certain VIPs like Hillary Clinton, referring to individuals at Law Firm 1 and the Clinton campaign. So the government's evidence at trial will also establish that among the internet data, Tech Executive 1, who I'm going to tell you who that is in just a second, and his associate, the data that they exploited was the actual domain name system, the actual DNS, internet traffic pertaining to a particular healthcare provider, Trump Tower, Donald Trump's Central Park West apartment building where he lived, and the Executive Office of the President of the United States, which we call EOP. Yeah, this is the non-public side of that, okay? Now, Tech Executive 1's employer, whose internet company 1, probably something like Twitter, had come to access and maintain dedicated servers for the EOP as part of a sensitive arrangement whereby it provided DNS resolution services to the EOP. In other words, he had access to the server. Somehow he had physical access to the room where the server was. Dun, 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 dun. He went in there and attached instruments. He hacked it. He wiretapped it. That's the way President Trump put it, right? Anyway, the filing further explains that claims of collusion involving were based on supposed hookups from these targeted sites that I've just told you about with a Russian mobile phone provider. But they failed to note that these connections were common to the U.S. and had begun way back in 2014 during the Obama administration. Yes, Obama set up the wiretap while he was president. He allowed the access to the servers in the EOP. That, my friends, is treason. It's treason, punishable by firing squad. The revelations in Durham's filings are already being compared to Watergate. Not even close. Watergate is just a break-in at a stupid hotel compared to this. And this began when Republican operatives broke into the offices, way back in 1972. It was nothing. All they did is look through some files because they wanted to know what the Democrats were doing. Big deal. They do way, way worse than that. Now they kill Democratic operatives now if they step out of line. So anyway, July 2016 also marks the point at which the Obama administration launched its investigation into supposed links between Trump and Russia. We're only talking 2 months. 2 months after he becomes candidate. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. Don't go away. More America Free Radio coming at you right after this.
There's magic in good communications. There's magic in the human touch of words. It was said the pen is mightier than the sword. That's true. Words are powerful. Words are almost godlike. I'm an amateur on some of these studies, but an ancient verse says, God was the Word, and the Word was God. Wow, powerful language to illustrate how powerful the Word is. Words can be life-changing. Words can give life. Words can formulate ideologies. We have to find ways to give words to that so that it can be understood. Words form the pictures of our minds. Words help to translate an interchange of thought and ideas between human beings. So one of the most important skills is the skill of good communication, learning words, phrases, sentences, whether it's written or spoken. Language is so powerful in affecting our lives and using those skills to affect other people's lives.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. By Christine, great for heart palpitations. By Ann, before I started using this product, every afternoon my ankles and my hands would be swollen. That doesn't happen anymore. So if that part of their advertising is true, I have to assume that the rest of it is also. Not to mention that when I had my yearly blood test, only a few weeks after beginning to use this product, my cholesterol had dropped over 30 points. I'm going to continue to take it. By Croc, I love this product. It really works. By Brad, works great, thank you. Tell us your story. Get your Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Greetings, Earth Explorers. My name is Brooks Agnew, and I am your host on X Squared Radio every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. This is where the past meets the future. We explore the mysteries of the universe and of the Earth. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. We will dissolve the propaganda of dangerous people with dangerous plans for the planet. We will discuss the latest technologies and challenges for humankind. We will discover the safest place for you to stand when the thinkings and doings of mankind come flying apart, and how you can be one of the people that helps put it back together. Join us.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are TFR.
Frequency Radio.
All right, let's continue on with our story, because former chief investigator of the Trump-Russia probe for the House Intelligence Committee under then Representative Devin Nunes, he's the Republican from California. His name is Kash Patel. Now, I have a lot of faith in Kash Patel. I've followed him for a number of years. Not only is he's an eloquent speaker, but he's a very, very capable investigator. He said the filing definitively shows that the Hillary Clinton campaign directly funded and ordered its lawyers at Perkins Coie to orchestrate a criminal enterprise to fabricate a connection between President Trump and Russia. And I don't mean discover a connection. They fabricated the connection. Per Durham, and this is part of the offensive that is so devastating to them. The reason why we're talking about it on Sunday night, when this just came out Friday night, nobody in the news is even covering this really yet. A few people have made mention of it. Now, tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock on Breitbart Radio and Patriot 125, Alex Marlow is going to talk about this. And he's going to try to get as far as I'm going to get tonight. He won't make it unless I call in. This arrangement was put in motion 2 months after Trump became the candidate. They didn't even know if he would win yet. They didn't even know if he would win. In fact, they were pretty convinced he would get slaughtered. This is just 2 months after he became the candidate. July of 2016. Meaning that the Clinton campaign, Hillary Clinton and her lawyers, they masterminded the most intricate and coordinated conspiracy against Trump when he was both a candidate and later president of the United States. You remember when that was kicked off, right? I mean, when it was actually set in motion. Yes? It was January, I believe it was January 5th. January 5th of 2017, Barack Obama had a meeting in the Oval Office, and Susan Rice was there, and Vice President Biden was there, and Comey Chameleon was there, and Barack Obama was there. And what he did is he welded all the intelligence agencies together with an executive order, which they had never been before. They are always separate. You know, you have your jurisdiction, I have mine. We don't share notes. He ordered them to share notes, and then he aimed them all officially at then President Donald Trump. One president assigning the most powerful intelligence community on the planet at another president. That's why everybody in that meeting needs to hang. Yes, they need to hang. Anyway, the latest pleading from Special Counsel Robert Durham provides indisputable evidence that President Trump was spied on by operatives under the orders of and the payroll of Hillary Clinton in an effort to develop a completely fabricated connection to Russia. We know it was fabricated because it all fell apart. They never were able to put a single solitary comma of truth together about it. So straight out of the Sussman indictment, Tech Executive 1, whose name is Rodney Joffe, Joffe. You're going to hear his name tomorrow morning. Rodney Joffe. He's identified as Tech Executive 1. You've already seen the indictment. You may have read it. You may have seen it. You may have heard about it. Tech Executive 1 is Rodney Joffe. Oh, he's scared. He's already put his house, he deeded it into a trust a few days ago. He knows he's going down. He knows he's going to prison. He's just a hacker. He's not a public person. This is a guy that just had access to the DNS data. He had access to the EOP equipment so that he could, yes, of course he could listen to President Trump and his associates, but more importantly, he was able to alter the records. Yes, he used the data that was provided by DARPA. Of course, DARPA is very capable of fabricating data, right? He used the data provided by DARPA to make their political attacks look credible, okay? He was able to get their data into the digital record. In other words, he was able to show in the non-public data that Trump and his associates visited certain websites when they never visited them. They changed the timestamp on things so it looked like they overlapped or were sequential. And the issue is that Joffe, Rodney Joffe, he actually altered the DNS records to cover for Clinton's team, and in some cases implicate Trump's team. It was all fake. It was all highly illegal. It was treason. Joffe knows it, and he also knows he's far enough down the ladder, he's going to die. He's going to die. Either he's going to be executed under law for treason, or he's going to be suicided before he ever gets a chance to speak. And it was all done by our own intelligence agencies, the FBI, the CIA, and the tech capabilities of Joffe with DARPA. Our people did it. Our agencies did it. And it's been later confirmed that 2 former DARPA employees have been given grand jury testimony. He's already busted. It appears Durham is following this track. Justice is coming. Now, at the same time the fake Russian invasion was announced 2 days ago by the Biden administration, by Blinken and by Austin and by Biden himself, I was listening to Fox News by mistake on Friday morning, going to work before the sun came up. And what did they say? Putin has green-lighted the invasion. It's on like Donkey Kong before the end of the Olympics, or maybe as early as Monday morning. Russia will be invading. We have credible evidence. Well, then the reporters questioned them. What evidence do you have? Well, I just gave it to you. No, you're just saying it. But I mean, where's your proof? Where's the evidence? Where's the transcript of the phone conversation where Putin said, I'm green lighting this, let's invade Monday morning? Well, I just told you the evidence. You see, and they went around and he was lying. And I was screaming at the radio, you guys are insane. You're the only people on planet freaking Earth that's saying that Russia is going to invade Ukraine. Ukraine was invaded in 2014 by NATO and by CIA operatives and MI6 operatives. They burned Kiev to the ground, okay? Viktor Yanukovych was sent out of the country in exile, or he was going to be killed, just like Victoria Nuland assassinated 100 Ukrainians in the streets using U.S. Army Special Ops snipers. It was terrible. It was absolute cold-blooded murder. And it was all led by Johns, McCain, and Kerry. That was in 2014. Earth Explorers, that never stopped. Those guys are still there. Now, Zelensky is trying to bring peace to the area known as Ukraine, which is difficult to do because there are 3 factions in Ukraine, and they're not cohabitating very well. One, we have the separatists, which is in a region called Donbass, which is made largely of Donetsk and Luhansk. And these are Russians. They're communists. They're Russians. They have grandmothers and uncles and cousins and kids in Russia. They're Russians. They speak Russian. They come from Russia. They have been linked to Russia since the year 1760, for crying out loud. They're right on the border. And they basically want to do the same thing that Crimea did. Okay, Crimea in 2014, they had an election. And the Crimean people said, we don't want to be in a war. We don't want NATO jets and tanks and missiles in our country. We don't want to be caught in a debt trap. Okay, we're not a wealthy country. We have a warm water port. It's valuable to Russia. We're Russians. We speak Russian. We shop in Russia. We can't shop in the UK or in the Europe because they won't let us in the EU without a long visa process. Good luck with that. But we can go to Russia. We could take the ferry and go across, and it's cool. So they voted to be annexed by Russia. And we still have State Department people and Blinken himself calling it an occupation, saying that Russia invaded and took over Crimea. That's a lie. It's an absolute lie. I know people who were there and who voted in that election. They wanted it. Well, the Donbass wants it too. They want to be annexed by Russia. They want to be Russians again. Here's the issue. The oligarchs own that land. Yeah, the oligarchs are very wealthy lords that own the mines and the forests and the factories and the rivers and the farms. They own all the land. They're billionaires left over from World War II. They fought on both sides as the Russian army was coming through and as the Nazi army was going through. They capitalized on it. They were industrialists. Okay, they made weapons, they made tanks, they made guns, and they capitalized on it both ways, and they became very, very wealthy, very wealthy. And they own the land, and they don't want Russia to have it back. It's private property. They don't want it to become property of the state, and they're fighting to keep it. So that's the battle between the separatists and the oligarchs. But there's, I told you, a third faction. And the third faction are the Ukrainians, which are kind of a mishmash of quite a few people. I think they're the most beautiful people on the planet, to tell you the truth. The women are absolutely stunning in their architecture, and the men are as tough as granite. Okay? It's just one of those areas you don't want to mess with. Big, tall, strong, low body fat, high testosterone people. They're just badass. They're like Cro-Mags. They're so strong and so athletic and so perfect in every way. They're genetically superior to almost any other breed, or should I say genetic pattern, on the planet. I promise you, it's true. They are being invaded by NATO and by mercenaries, and some of those mercenaries are Al-Qaeda, and they're fighting on the streets. They're shooting up buildings and killing people, and it is just not a good situation there. It's a criminal situation that's difficult to deal with. There is no invasion. In fact, I spoke with people in Kiev not 3 days ago, when this was all supposed to be inevitable, that it's, the troops are massing, the engines are warmed up, the jets are on the runway, they're coming. Kiev was normal. People were shopping and obeying all the traffic laws, and it was a bright sunny day, and there was no invasion. Nobody is expecting Russia to invade. Think about it for a moment. Just think about it for a moment. What the hell would Putin gain by this? Putin has already won. He's already won. He has Biden shitting his pants every single day over this. Absolutely. Putin has all the dirt, all of it, on the money laundering and the grifting and the child trafficking and everything on the Biden crime gang. He has it all. He could blackmail Biden anytime he wants. He also controls all the natural gas to the northern part of Europe. Once Nord Stream 2 is complete, he'll control even more than that. Oil is back to $93 a barrel. In case you haven't noticed, oil and gas is over half of the GDP of Russia. Russia's making a freaking fortune right now. They're making money like they've never made money before. And why would they go to war? They're making money. They haven't lost a single soldier, not one. And they have Biden absolutely crapping his pants every single day. Merkel's gone. May's gone. Everybody that opposed him is gone. The only thing he's worried about are the cruise missiles in Romania and Poland and the ever-encroaching NATO. And what has he said? 2 words. I don't know what they are in Russian, but in English, it's back off. Back up. Get away from the Ukrainian border. Don't invade Ukraine. If you cross the border into Ukraine, we're going to come into Ukraine and we're going to wipe you off the face of the earth. And by the way, we have 100,000 troops, planes, missiles, anti-missile stuff, stealth technology, and we have ample blood supply to take care of any injuries. Back up. That's what he's telling them. So, all this is happening at the same time that Durham is applying pressure on the other side of the Clinton crime syndicate. So, yes, of course, it's very powerful stuff. This is what's really, really going to lead the news media tomorrow morning, because Wars R Us wants this to happen. Wars R Us wants this to happen. Now, here's a question for you. I mean, one can't help ask why Mr. Joffe, this kid, this hacker, via Sussman, who has already been indicted and is going to go to jail for the rest of his life probably, why did they risk legal exposure to continue to push this Trump-Russia allegations before and after the 2016 election? For the money? Really? I mean, is your freedom, is your life worth that? Why did they do it? First to the FBI in 2016, then to the dreaded CIA in 2017, and tied up with DARPA, the likes of DARPA. It seems that, Mr. Rodney Joffe, and you'll see his picture tomorrow, he was desperate. He was desperate, and his desperation only increased after the Trump election. And the question I have for you is why? Why was he so desperate? Because everybody, especially Mr. Joffe, was exposed for the crimes they committed for Hillary Clinton. And by the way, treason is punishable by death. There's no parole from that. No parole. You're going to die. You're going to get killed. Because, okay, I get that question. I get it. But here's the thing. They thought Hillary was going to win. They thought Hillary was going to win. See, and then the only thing you had to worry about was Hillary Clinton blackmailing you. At least then you could live. Oh, you might keep doing dirty deeds for the rest of your life, but you'd live, and your kids would live, right? In darkness and in hell, but you'd be alive. But Hillary didn't win. Hillary didn't win. That's why Mr. Joffe was so scared. Because the one thing about these, these digital records, these DNS records, the one thing about this is it can't be erased. Once it's out there forever. It never goes away. You can't go back in and erase. It's in the cloud, so to speak. Everybody knows it's out there, okay? So they're going to come for you. Eventually, your fingerprints are going to be found, and you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life. Or worse, you're going to be convicted for treason because you were spying on the damn president. And here's another question for you. You heard the name CrowdStrike, right? Let me refresh your memory. The DNC server was allegedly hacked, right? Hillary's server was open access to the Chinese and to the Russians because she had her own server in her bathroom and it wasn't really secure. Anybody could access it, even people in Romania. And they wanted to do an investigation to see if the server had been accessed. And they wanted the FBI to go in and do it. And Hillary said, no. And the DNC said, nope, not going to happen. We'll use a company called CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike will come in and they'll look at the server and they'll determine whether or not it was accessed. Of course, it didn't take CrowdStrike but about $50,000. I mean about 50 minutes for them to say, oh, no, everything was secure, everything was fine, nobody accessed it, everything's cool, everything was secure. What if CrowdStrike was a patsy? What if they were to unknowingly reach false conclusions of a Russian hack based on fraudulent information that was provided them by Rodney Joffe? Huh? What if they didn't know? And Perkins Coie and the DNC Hillary campaign, what if they didn't know? What if they saw the trail? It looked Russian. It sounded Russian. It must be Russian. What if it was just made to look like Russian? That's not so hard to do, Mr. Rodney Joffe, right? Not so hard to do. I mean, in order to doubt the data that Joffe provided, you'd really have to be a conspiracy theorist. You really have to be paranoid. You'd have to believe that he would change the DNA metadata. That's really stretching it. Of course, the proof is there. Now, this week or perhaps next, we're going to see an indictment of Mr. Rodney Joffe. I think it's going to happen tomorrow. And then Wars R Us is going to go into high gear. And so you need to watch out for a false flag attack to blame on Russia. Yes. Now, yes, Joffe, okay, the bottom line is Joffe was mining the EOP, the Executive Office of the President, DNS traffic and other data for the purpose of gathering derogatory information about Donald Trump. That's it. That's the indictment. Now, we don't know how much legitimate DNS traffic the EOP has, but melding the EOP's DNS traffic, for which Newstar was apparently under contract to perform certain functions with other data, it was clearly something the EOP could bring off, okay? They could do it. Expertise, and this is where it really gets treasonous, expertise with the FISA relevant, the Foreign Investigation Surveillance Act. The FISA relevant data stream appears to have been how Newstar got the EOP DNS resolutions gig. But once Newstar was no longer acting on that in that behalf, access to a larger data stream had come from somewhere else. And that looks like what Durham's terse allusion to other data refers to in the indictment. That's where it's going to go after Mr. Joffe. He knows he's already deeded his house into a trust. He's already knows that it's coming for him. Yes, of course he's lawyered up. Absolutely he's lawyered up. Durham is investigating whether they were involved in a scheme to misuse this sensitive, non-public internet data, which they had access to through their government contracts, to dredge up or to fabricate derogatory information on Trump on behalf of the Clinton campaign. It didn't work. It didn't work. Nunez found it. And Patel Patriot, who I understand was a researcher either with or near that team, has written extensively about this. Let's see if I want to cover anything else about this, because the reason I'm bringing this up is the timing. Stephen Tyrell is a white-collar criminal defense attorney who I believe is going to represent Mr. Joffe. And he's confirmed that his client Joffe is the person referred to as Tech Executive 1 throughout the Sussman indictment. And Tech Executive 1 exploited his access, blah, 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 as I've already said. So the lawyer is aware of it, and I'm sure he's just going to make sure that Mr. Joffe doesn't get killed. He's probably going to go to jail, there's no doubt about that, but he wants to keep him alive. Of course, the indictment also alleges that the computer scientists knew, hey, we got to take another quick break. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. Don't go away. More America Free Radio right after this.
Hi, my name is Ella, and I'm 10 years old. I'm one of the millions of children born to parents suffering from the sheeple virus. Symptoms include the inability to think for oneself, the attention span of a goldfish, and a strong belief in government and the mainstream media. It is estimated that 1 out of every 2 children are being raised by parents infected with the sheeple virus. But there is a cure. For as little as 19 cents per day, you can become a TFR supporter and help children like me get their daily dose of truth. Together, we will make sure every child has protection from deception.
I'm looking at the crowd here and the tens of thousands, probably 100,000 plus people here. And you did it all without burning down buildings? Without looting? I didn't know that was possible. No shit. According to the media,
these explosions are bullshit.
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 When you have a large gathering of peaceful protesters, they're supposed to burn it all down.
Boom. These explosions are bullshit. Boom.
Who could have seen that coming?
Boom, boom, boom. These explosions are bullshit.
No shit.
Let's have trial by combat.
This fight has only just begun.
Keep fighting.
Let justice be done.
We're gonna walk down and I'll be there with you.
Get up.
The best is yet to come. When you catch somebody in the fraud, you're allowed to go by very different rules. It's so egregious, it's so bad, so base that people don't even believe it. It can't be true.
That's why my father sends a tweet. Patriots descend on Washington, D.C.
Amen. And a woman. No shit.
Boom.
According to the media,
These explosions are bullshit.
bullshit.
Bullshit. Boom.
When you have a large gathering of peaceful protesters, they're supposed to burn it all down.
Boom. These explosions are bullshit. Boom.
Who could have seen that coming?
Boom, boom, boom. These explosions are bullshit.
No shit.
Let's have trial by combat. We're gathered together in the heart of our nation's capital to save our democracy. And Mike Pence is gonna have to come through for us. If he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country.
Who hides evidence? Criminals hide evidence.
I had no idea. Who could have seen that coming?
Because you'll never take back our country with
adversary, against democracy, against liberty, be overturned right now.
So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue.
No shit!
Boom.
According to the media,
These explosions are bullshit.
bullshit.
Bullshit. Boom.
When you have a large gathering of peaceful protesters, they're supposed to burn.
Here we go. Hour 2.
We are TFR, Truth Frequency Radio.
Yeah, maybe I'm just lucky. I don't know. I said Bengals. Bengals are up 20-16. It's the second half, but there's plenty of game left. We'll see what happens. All right, listen. I want to wrap this up because, and I don't normally stay on one subject this long, but the reason I want to go into this amount of detail is because Wars R Us is really, really pushing to start something because they really need a war. And they need a war in this particular area for a couple of reasons. Number one is Ukraine is not a NATO member. So we could do a lot of stuff that you can't do otherwise because it doesn't involve anybody else. You could put sanctions against Russia. You can put troops in the Balkans. There are other things that you can do, the Baltic states. And you have to understand that Mr. Biden and his gang, Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals, is very compromised, and they're very compromised in this particular region of the world because they've been laundering billions of dollars of U.S. taxpayer money through this region with those oligarchs for decades. The $1 billion that Joe Biden as vice president laundered through Ukraine, through Burisma and the nonprofits and the shell corporations and all that, while Poroshenko was president, enriched his family and enriched his gang members. And the records are all there. But they won't be if the place is blown to crap. And that's kind of what they need to have happen. That's why they're announcing it. That's why Wars R Us is coming out and trying to market their war. But let me get back to this because this is so important. One of the campaign representatives, and by that I mean the Hillary Clinton campaign representatives. It's so important to know this name because this is the guy right now that's pushing for war. He's the guy that you heard Friday morning announce that Putin has green-lighted it. It's war. We're on. This is it. We're ready to go. We're steaming in that direction. All missiles are aimed in that direction. This is the guy. The campaign representative with whom Joffe coordinated when he was hacking the president, when he was altering DNS data, was none other than Jake Sullivan. It was none other than Jake Sullivan. He was acting as Clinton's foreign policy advisor, okay? Jake Sullivan is now the national security advisor for Joe Biden. The same Jake Sullivan, the same crime. What he's doing, he's trying to burn the evidence. Okay? He is now Virtual Joe's National Security Advisor. That's the same as Susan Rice was for Obama, okay? Of course he's under scrutiny for statements he made under oath to Congress about his knowledge of the Trump Alpha research project. He lied. In a potential conflict of interest, Merrick Garland, who is currently the Attorney General, employed Jake Sullivan, employed his wife, Maggie Sullivan, as a law clerk. You know what a law clerk does? Everything. They do everything. They write all the briefs. They write all the cases. They do everything. They know everything about a judge that they're working for. When Merrick Garland was a federal judge. You see how small this family gets? How tight the sphincter gets here? Garland controls the purse strings to Durham's investigation and whether his final report is actually going to be released to the public. Merrick Garland controls his own fate and the fate of Jake Sullivan and the fate of Mr. Jaffe. Now, at the time, Mr. Jaffe was advising none other than the infamous President Obama on security matters and positioning himself for a top cybersecurity post in an anticipated Clinton administration. It didn't happen. Clinton didn't win. He didn't get the position. He took the risks and he lost. Now there's more, because you got to take into consideration Georgia Tech. They were trying to get a $17 million Pentagon contract to research cybersecurity, which is a big fat contract. I've been in meetings at Fort Bragg where generals and colonels, full birds, I'm talking about one subject, about electric trucks, incorporating them into military bases as logistics equipment. And they kept shifting the meeting back to cybersecurity. They were scared to death. I'm serious. You could smell the fear on these guys. You could smell it. This was 2016, 2017. Now, of course, they got the contract. So government funding in hand, they continued mining the non-public data on Trump after he took office in 2017. You think they were scared? No, they weren't scared. They weren't scared because they had Sussman. They had Jake Sullivan. And they had the other former Clinton campaign officials, running interference for them. They were the ones paying the bill. And this time they enlisted former FBI analyst turned Democrat operative Dan Jones to re-engage the FBI. Of course, the FBI was founded on corruption by Roosevelt, and they were founded to protect the interests of the Democrat Party, and they've been doing that ever since they were founded in 1935. So Sussman attempted to get the CIA interested. They already got the FBI. Those two do not like to work together at all. They tried to get the CIA interested in the internet data. Investigators have also subpoenaed Dan Jones. He hasn't said anything to anybody. He's a spook, so I'm not thinking we're going to see anything serious out of him. So let's talk about Mr. Jaffe just for a second, because you need to know he's not U.S. born, okay? He is South African. He was born in South Africa, and he left his job about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks, but about a month ago. He left his job at News Star last month after hiring a top fraud attorney. I already told you who it was, in Washington several months earlier. I told you, already deeded his house over to a trust. I mean, there's a lot of things he's doing. He's getting ready. Mr. Tyrell defended Jaffe in a public statement, asserting his special counsel, a grand jury, presented a misleading picture of his actions in the so-called speaking indictment, which the sources said is a prelude to additional indictments that could culminate in conspiracy charges. If he's indicted for a conspiracy, he will probably be deported. It's a possibility he could serve the rest of his life in prison. But it's going to drag Perkins Coie in, the consigliere, and this is where it could get very dangerous because these people are connected. Mark Elias and Glenn Simpson with Fusion GPS, the Clinton campaign, they're all connected together and very, very powerful. Very powerful. And they are actually feel untouchable because of the blackmail and the compromise that they have with lawmakers. So, let's see where this ties in. I'm going to skip through that part. A lot of details. Of course, we already know about the fake evidence. We discussed that. So, on November 17th, 2016, after Georgia Tech got the cybersecurity contract, the project was dubbed Ramnausea. And it would allow researchers to sift through existing and new data sets to find bad actors on the internet, which would be like America Free Radio, I suppose. Although we're very small, we have fewer than 100,000 listeners globally, and we have a lot of people in the chat room right now. Most everybody is on DLive. So, yeah, I appreciate you. Absolutely. Who's Joe 77062? I was 1 month old when Sputnik was launched. Yeah, very good. I was young too at that time. Yeah, I think I was 4. You actually remember Eisenhower's farewell speech? Oh, I remember hearing a recording of it, but I don't remember hearing the speech itself. All right. So they did this fishing expedition. They didn't find anything, so they basically made their own Lego fish and tried to pass them off as real, and it didn't work. Everybody spent a lot of money, and now everyone is caught. And now what are they going to do? Well, they're going to do what they always do. Same thing Hillary did in Kosovo. They're going to call up Wars Are Us. Yep, they're going to call Wars Are Us. Now, usually, yeah, that's probably a good idea. We're going to probably have to say goodbye to YouTube. We don't have any people stuck on YouTube right now. We let you know about 20 minutes ago we were going to say goodnight to YouTube. Hate to do it because we have a lot of 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. I love my YouTube audience. I love the notifications they put out. I like the top chat. We liked everything about the YouTube platform, but unfortunately Google routinely violates our civil rights. I'm getting ready to go into an area that is not speculative, but it is going to be dealing with war. And we don't like to talk about that stuff on YouTube because it upsets the people out there in Silicon Valley. Yeah, they're really going to be upset when they have to wear a mask, not for COVID, but for nuclear waste. So we're not going to let them censor us. We're going to censor them. Good night, YouTube.